And welcome to Two Guys on Politics. It's Sunday, February 9th, 2026. And this is season five, episode five of our podcast with Bill Lipinski, my co host, and myself, Ray Hanania, here broadcasting on the U.S. Arab Radio Network on WNZK AM 690 radio in Michigan, as well as on YouTube at twoguysonpolitics.com, YouTube, the American owned network, YouTube. We got a bunch of topics we're going to talk about. One of them is the racism controversy over the video meme of Barack and Obama and Michelle Obama that was presented with the theme "The Lion Sleeps Tonight," the theme song from The Lion King, Lion Sleeps Tonight. It was a political thing, but it was very racist. And we'll talk about Trump's response and some of the basics of it. We're also going to talk about the Super Bowl, a halftime show, which featured Bad Bunny, a Puerto Rican American. I would call him Puerto Rican American, but we're going to talk about that. And the fact that about 4 million people refused to watch the halftime show and instead watched something that was put together by Turning Point America, which was that organization founded by Charlie Kirk, the far right wing political group. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to talk about the stock market. Is it a reflection of the economy? If the stock market does well, are we doing well? And if we are, quit complaining, I guess. I don't know. And there are a couple other things Bill and I will talk about. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll start our discussion. I'm Ray Hanania.
I'm Bill Lipinski, and this is Two Guys on Politics. And the next voice you hear will be of my very good friend, Ray Hanania.
Hey, Bill, how are you? I wanted to start with the Super Bowl, but we really got to talk first of all about the thing that's dominating, I think, the news a lot. This video meme, which is kind of a satire. A meme, I guess, is a satire on a political issue or whatever issue or social issue. It basically took the Lion King uh, images and put the faces of Democrats on them. It was just Democrats. And then it put Donald Trump on the face of a lion, and all the Democrats bowing down to him as he walked through the meme. But and they were all like little images, There's J.B. Pritzker was there, Hillary Clinton was there, Hakeem Jeffries, a lot of Democrats, all the people that Trump hates was in that. But at the very end, it was this huge picture of Michelle Obama and Barack Obama on the bodies of gorillas, on apes, and with apes swinging in from the vines. And that immediately generated criticism from people that said it was racist. I mean, I personally think it was racist. Um, and Trump, when he was asked about it, I think his quote was something to the effect that, oh, I saw the beginning of it. It was posted on my Truth Social network, which is his platform, by somebody else, by a staffer. They never say who the staffer is. I didn't see the end of it. I only saw the beginning, which addressed voter theft, in his election from when he ran against Joe Biden 5 years ago. So, but I don't know. When I watched it, it was very racist to me. Clearly, if the Obamas were put in the context the way everybody else was, I might not have thought about it so much. But they were given such prominence in the end as gorillas and apes. It really just is disturbing to me. And I guess what's more disturbing is even if it was just a stupid meme, video, he's the president of the United States. you don't share something like that, do you? I mean, what did you make of it?
Absolutely not.
What did you think?
I thought it was despicable. I thought it was racist. Uh, I feel terrible that the President of the United States would allow something like that to go out on his website. And you cannot tell me he didn't know everything that was in that video when it went out. Uh, and I'm disgusted with him. Uh, he should have never done something like that. He should have never permitted something like that. He shouldn't have blamed it on a staffer. He should have stood up and said, yes, I did it. I thought it was a joke. I didn't mean it to be racist. But that just so shows his insensitivity. It is racist beyond a shadow of a doubt. And as I said, I'm disgusted with him, and he should apologize, but he won't because he never apologizes for anything. And, I didn't vote for Barack Obama. I was not a big fan of Barack Obama's. I thought he gave great speeches, but I really thought he was very weak in a number of other areas. So I'm not defending someone I voted for. What I'm trying to do is defend America and show everybody in America we're not all racist like that. And after all, Barack Obama was the president of the United States for 8 years. If nothing else, you should show a little respect for a man such as that.
Yeah, I think you raised two really important issues. One, the racist aspect of it and how race and politics come together. But the other side of it is it's okay to criticize, if you want to in the proper way. You don't have to agree with or vote for or support Barack Obama or Michelle Obama. You could criticize them, but there's a way to criticize them, right? There's a responsible way to criticize them. And this, and I agree with this, just so racist. It was really disgusting. Worse is the attitude, I think, that they're more offended. Trump and his administration are more offended that anybody would bring this up, especially since the video kind of showcased Trump as the Lion King, on the face of a lion. He wasn't on the body of a gorilla. I wonder what Trump would have said if he were on the body of a hyena or a snake. You can imagine, right? But Carolyn Levitt, his spokesperson, when she was first asked about it, said, "Oh, this is from an internet meme video depicting President Trump as the king of the jungle and Democrats as characters from The Lion King. Please stop the fake outrage and report on something today that actually matters to the American public." Uh, that's kind of offensive because it's as if race and issues of race don't matter to the American public. And I think racism is really important. You and I, we may disagree with policies that, may give African Americans more benefits than whites. That's a legitimate argument to make, to say, wait a minute, the Civil War has been over for 100 and how many, 200 years, 108, 40 years, whatever the math is. We could argue that. There's a way to argue that. What we shouldn't be arguing is whether a former president, as you point out, he was the president of the United States. He was elected by a majority of the American people. We should treat that with respect. And I would think that Trump, instead of lying, because I don't believe that he just watched part of it and dropped it, because he would have seen himself as a face on a lion, and he would have wanted to have watched to see what else they said about him. He would have watched it right to the end. So I believe Trump is a liar. He should have apologized for this. He should have shown that he was a man. He should have defined the issues and say, yes, there's a political, I didn't like Obama. I didn't like his policies, but this kind of crossed the line. His refusal to do that suggests that it's all about race and racism on his part.
Unfortunately, uh, another thing that has been overlooked somewhat in this is that I understand within that song and within the cartoons that are come out about, the what is it, the lion sleeps tonight or something
Right.
like
The song Lion
that.
Sleeps Tonight.
There are no gorillas in that.
Right. This was added. You're absolutely right. There are
Absolutely.
no gorillas in it.
So they were definitely put in for the express purpose of comparing Michelle and Brock to gorillas. Disgusting, sickening. I wish that somehow Trump would have a, a miracle occur to him and that he would wise up and stop trying to divide this country.
Yeah, it's not, it's just, it makes us as a country look bad
God,
that this,
yes.
he wants it to go away. Because I think he knows that it makes him look bad. And I think the Republican Senator Tim Scott, he's the only black Republican in the Senate, and he's the head of the National Republican Senatorial Committee. He posted on Twitter praying it was fake because it's the most racist thing I've seen come out of the White House. The president should remove it. That still doesn't even go far enough to say anything because the president did finally remove it after 12 hours of being on Truth Social, which is his social network. Can you imagine if Facebook or some social media criticized him in a similar way?
Oh,
You
my
know,
heavens.
he wants what was that one TV show that portrays him in a negative way? He wanted that taken off the air. I'll think about it. Uh, I'll think of it.
Jimmy Kimmel?
I don't want, no, no, it's a cartoon, uh,
Oh,
cartoon episode that shows Trump, South Park, that's what it is,
okay.
that shows Trump in a very negative way, naked, sleeping with the devil. I mean, it's horrible, but it's not racist. It's purely political when you look at it. If this meme of the Obamas had been political and they hadn't put them on apes, if they had merged them into other animals with the rest of the Democrats that were animals, I might have said, okay, yeah, it's just bad politics. It's disturbing political meme. But
Listen, is Joe Biden depicted in this at all?
yes, oh yeah, and well, it's depicted in the Lion King video. He's in there also.
Oh,
Oh,
good.
Hakeem Jeffries, all of the big Democrats are in there. There are other people that from the View, critics of Trump's. Anybody that was a critic of Trump is in that
Well, they're
video.
being investigated, I understand now. The View. The
Oh
Justice
yeah, I'm
Department is
sure.
investigating them. Mhm.
Yeah, that's the
I
other.
don't like The View at all. I don't agree with the position of those women that are on there. I think the one conservative that they have on there does a terrible job of defending conservative positions. But it's America. You have a right to say whatever you want to say. Now,
Right.
got to get back to that.
Yeah, I agree with you that, if it's political, you don't have to like it. I don't like it. And if it really is political, I mean, maybe it might even border on racism. Maybe you take a pass, but I would apologize if people think it's racist. I would say, I apologize for that. That wasn't me. I didn't intend it. But I think it had a strong political message. That's what attracted me to it. I felt the election was stolen and Biden was falsely elected. He could have gone through all of that, but he didn't do that. He just brushed it off and said, "Oh, it's not important." But yeah, it is. I think it is important, and I think that it reflects the kind of problems that we're having in America.
It
That
certainly does. There's no question about that.
th-
You would think
yeah,
that when we were able to elect a man president of the United States who was half black, that we would have passed that problem in this country. But
right.
apparently we haven't, because I'm sure Trump would not have uh, okayed putting that video up if he didn't think it was going to do him some political good, which says to me that there are still people in this country who are very strongly prejudiced.
Yeah, there's no listen. If someone were to ask me, is Trump's administration racist? I absolutely think he is racist. And even though he tries to argue that it's politics, he doesn't like somebody because of politics. He doesn't like Whoopi Goldberg because of her politics. He doesn't like that Joy Behar, I think was the woman you were referring to from The View. He may not like her politics. Yeah, there's people that I don't like their politics either. But it's not them that I don't like. When they get personal, yeah, I don't like them. But if I don't like somebody's politics, we can argue the politics and disagree. You and I have disagreed about a lot of politics, different political
Absolutely.
things many times. When the world was much more sane. Today, it's hard to argue those issues that we used to argue because we're overwhelmed with this kind of craziness, right? It's like every day there's something new from this administration, and it
That's for
frightens me.
sure. Every day, if it's more than normally it's more than one thing. It's usually a couple of things. Fortunately, because there are so many of them, we forget a lot of them when we go on.
Well, and I noticed that the president has, I think he's recognizing that these things are hurting the midterm elections. I think this only fuels what's going to happen to him and his party. I think Trump is dragging down the Republican Party, and I'm not even sure that it's a Republican Party anymore. I think it's the Trump Party. He puts his name on everything, right? Battleships. Yeah, he puts his name on every possible thing, right? I can't even make a list. There's so many things, and his ego when he says, "Well, I've done more for peace than anybody. I'm the least racist person in this country ever." A person like that has to say, I'm not racist is probably the most racist person in the world, right? Why do you say it unless
Uh,
you know everybody thinks you're racist and you feel you have an obligation to do it? But do you think his trajectory for the midterm elections, do
well,
you think
I
Republicans
think
are going to do well or bad?
no, I think the Republicans will do extremely poorly in the midterm elections. There's no doubt in my mind that they will lose the House of Representatives. I think they'll probably lose the House of Representatives by, 15, 20, maybe 25 votes. Uh, and I think now this latest escapade with uh, the the video about the Lion King, I think that the U.S. Senate is in jeopardy. I think it's very possible that the Democrats win the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. Now, that fortunately will give us definitely divided government between the executive branch and the legislative branch. And I believe that that probably is the best hope for this country, divided government, because I certainly don't want Trump and his party controlling everything. By the same token, there are many things that the Democrats want to do, many things that they stand for that I am totally opposed to. So the more gridlock we have, the happier I'll be, and I think the better off the country will be.
Yeah, it's unfortunately when it comes to politics, it's like we're in a political insane asylum on both sides because I agree with you. I think Trump won because the Democrats had poor leadership. And I think that the Republicans won and Trump won because of that poor leadership on the part of the Democrats. Joe Biden did a terrible job as president. There were some things that he did well. I remember when Biden was elected, during his first few months, he said his goal was to bring America together. Every Trump said that too when he was reelected. But the sad fact was that instead of bringing people together, Biden only fueled the polarization and the divide between the far right and the far left. And the people in the middle have been pushed to either side. You either accept the far right or you accept the far left. Nobody's talking about, hey, why don't we get back to the way we were in the middle, where we could debate politics, where we could like or dislike somebody, not because of who they were, but because of liking or disliking a view, a position. I don't agree with you on something. That doesn't mean I don't like you, but in today's world, that's what they've done to us. They've made us hate people.
Well, that we have
Um,
to stop doing that, and people in general have to stop doing that. We cannot be led by the extreme right or the extreme left. We must all be Americans. Don't be a Democrat. Don't be a Republican. Don't be a conservative. Don't be a liberal. Don't be a progressive. Be an American and try to do what is best for this country and for your neighbor. That's the position that we have to take, Ray, to save this country, because I think we are in trouble.
yes, and it worries me because of international problems that exist, like with Russia and Ukraine. We've talked about that many times, but I think Russia is being empowered by this, what's happening. The
I do too.
war is shifting in his favor, in Putin's favor, and Putin is not pro-American. He might be pro-Trump, the business side of Trump, but he's not pro-American. I think he's going to do everything he possibly can to destroy NATO and the European unity that exists in the West and the East in Europe against communism and China. I'm worried about them. Now, the Chinese are much more strategic than Putin.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
They're building up their economy, they're building up their assets. Putin is really about conflict, and at any moment he could use a nuclear bomb, limited, or what do they call that? A tactical nuclear weapon,
Tactical nuclear weapons, yes.
which would have limited range. But you call it tactical, or if someone calls it tactical, or just a normal nuclear bomb, regardless, it would change the whole dynamics of this world and really put America in jeopardy. And I don't think we're taking the right thing serious. But I got to go back to the Democrats. Trump is easy to beat up on. He is easy.
Yes.
He makes it easy. He says stupid things all the time. His ego, his narcissism, his misogynism, the hatred of women, then the way he calls women names and stuff. It's the Democrats that pretend that they're better, and they're just as bad sometimes. They just can't stop themselves from doing crazy things. Their policies are wrong. This whole ICE thing. We've talked about this. I think ICE is an example of how a middle ground issue has been ripped by both sides, by the far right and by the far left.
A- ICE is absolutely necessary. What Joe Biden did, I think, was criminal, allowing all these people to come into this country undocumented. I believe that ICE has to go after them. But the way they've gone after them, it is totally unacceptable to 80% of the American public. When they started out, 80% of the American people supported what ICE was doing.
Right,
Now 80% oppose what they're doing. A terrible, terrible mistake. I mean, it reminds me of Bibi Netanyahu.
right.
Netanyahu. Yeah, Netanyahu, that's a better name for him. What he has done in Gaza. He had so much of the world on his side after what happened with the terrorists to the Israelis. But he has squandered all of that goodwill because of the way he has gone after the people in Gaza. And I think that the same situation is occurring with ICE in this country. We're going to wind up having to scale it back so much, we're not going to be able to deport 10% of the people. And I don't like that idea. I think it's wrong. I think people should come to this country and be an American citizen.
Yeah, I agree with you. Israel is a good example. Israel is a great country. There's a way to work with it. The Palestinians should have their own state. But the Netanyahu government, I think, has been really took it too far. You want to get Hamas, get Hamas. They have the most sophisticated intelligence network in the world. They know exactly where these Hamas people are, and they can do that without killing women and children. So, yeah, I think that's a pattern that we're seeing, not just in Israel and Palestine, but also here in our politics, this extremism that goes hassled. It's unleashed. It does whatever it wants. It's a
Let
terrible
me
thing.
let me ask you a question uh, about Iran. You know, we have all this military hardware there. I don't really know what Trump is trying to get out of them. Uh, he says he wants them to stop trying to make nuclear weapons. Uh, he wants them to stop funding all these terrorist organizations. He wants them to stop trying to undermine all the other nations in the Middle East. You think he can achieve any of those?
No,
No,
no.
I don't.
What I think is going to happen is that he is using emotional topics, thinking that that's what his voters want. So he demonizes somebody rather than finding an answer to them. He doesn't want to find an answer to Iran. He wants Iran because if he can get his supporters to see Iran as the evil, they won't see his bad leadership. So I think he looks for these things like with Iran, with Venezuela. He uses these things as a distraction from his own failure. And the sad thing is his followers see that. Now, the left has done the exact same thing. Some of the leaders of the left, they do the exact same thing. What we really need is to look at Iran, find a smart way to control their drive to have a nuclear weapon. They don't have a nuclear weapon. They certainly want to do it, but there was a way to do it. Obama, I go back, we could criticize Obama, for mishandling Iran, for being too supportive of allowing, working with Iran. But I should point out that reminds me when we talk about ICE, Obama's 8 years in office arrested and deported more illegal immigrants than any other administration in this country. ICE did all the things that they're doing now, but not as a political tool the way they're being used by Trump. Trump is
Well,
using ICE as a statement. Barack used them, I think, as let's get rid of illegals, let's arrest them, the criminals. There was a report on WBBM radio today that said only 14% of all the thousands of people detained by ICE under Trump were actually people that were wanted criminals.
yeah, but they were all here illegally.
Yes, they are. Most of them were. Some of them were actually citizens that were just grabbed because they looked illegal. That's another part of the problem. But you're absolutely right. But Trump keeps saying all I want to do is get rid of the criminals.
Yeah, well, that's
No, he's not doing that.
no, but I want them to get rid of anyone that's here illegally. But by the same token, there was a story in one of the papers over the weekend about a family, a husband and wife, came here 30 years ago
Right.
illegally. Okay, but they've been here for 30 years. They started a trucking business. The trucking business has been successful. They have 3 children that have been born here. They have 2 grandchildren that have been born here. But they now are so concerned about things, they have decided to go back to Mexico after living in this country, producing a business, producing American children. They're going to go back to Mexico. Now, that I think is totally and completely ridiculous. That is some situation that Trump should step up and grant those people some kind of a permanent asylum here. Don't
Right.
make citizens, don't allow them to vote, but let them stay here without any fear of ever being deported, because they obviously are contributing significantly to the American economy. And I can imagine there's many other people that way. You and I agreed that anyone that's been here for 5 years, let them stay here. Let's find some way,
Right.
make them a permanent resident. You don't have to make them a citizen. You don't have to let them vote, but let them stay here. Let them not be, afraid that they're going to be deported or their children are going to be deported. That's no way for people to live. And as we both know, the Hispanic population in this country is growing more and more each and every year.
And I don't think it would be something to worry about if they came to this country wanting to be American. Because I'll
Right.
say that I agree with, yeah, those people who are fleeing Mexico and other countries, we should allow them to come into this country the right way. They need to understand the Constitution. They need to speak English. They have to. They need to
Absolutely,
respect
positively.
being an American. They don't have to give up their heritage. They can keep their heritage. Now, my parents came here. They embraced being American. My mother took lessons to learn English. She could only speak Arabic. But she went out of her way. She learned English. It didn't take her long to do that. And yeah, I know that there's some old people, maybe it's hard for them. But I was at a Secretary of State's office the other day because as a senior, I have to go get my license redone and I had to take my eyesight test. And while I was there, there must have been 20 people who couldn't speak English at all. They were holding up the line. They were arguing with people. I understand Spanish because a lot of my relatives live in Venezuela and Colombia, Arabs that fled the Middle East conflict. So I understand Spanish. I took Spanish in school, and I think learning Spanish is important. But I could hear them yelling and screaming at the English administrators, you should be speaking Spanish. This is my right as a citizen. And I'm thinking, your right should be learn English. And you should be lucky to be in this country, respect this country. So there are problems, I think, that are caused by the failure to impose citizenship the proper way. Our
Well,
process has been confused and destroyed, and it needs to be set up, reestablished, renovated, re-engineered so that new people come here, respect being an American, speak English, and want to be American. If you don't want to be American, don't come here.
no, absolutely. I agree.
All right, Bill, why don't we take a break and then we could talk about the Super Bowl, and then also talk about the stock market in the second segment. How's that?
That sounds good to me.
All right, everybody, we're going to take a quick break. And also we got one other topic. We're going to talk about the search for good news. We're going to
Right.
talk about that at the very end of the next segment. We'll be right back right after these messages. All right, welcome back to Two Guys on Politics with Bill Lipinski, my co-host, and I'm Ray Hanania. Bill, did you enjoy the Super Bowl?
Well, I enjoyed the Super Bowl. I didn't have a great deal of interest in either one of the two teams, uh, but my wife and I did watch it. It's,
Yeah.
it's probably the biggest event on television each and every year. Uh, I had some problems with the halftime show.
Uh,
Uh, I don't know Bad Bunny from Good Bunny, okay? I
right.
understand it's very popular. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with the show that he put on if it had been done in English.
Right.
But I do resent the fact that this is the biggest show on television every year in the United States of America. Our official language is English. I thought the show should have been done in English. Now, I know that the National Football League is trying to develop a following so they can make more money in Central and South America for their league. Well, I think that's a mistake. His music, you know, it's noise to me. He's very popular, fine. I mean, I still like Bing Crosby and Frank
Right.
Sinatra, okay? A lot of people don't even know who I'm talking about when I say that, but that's the kind of music that I like. I'm not even sure I ever get up to Elvis Presley. Pat Boone was my guy during those days. He was the good boy. Elvis was the bad boy. I wanted to be the good boy. But I did resent the fact that that whole program was done in Spanish. This is America. We should have English only. Everyone should learn English. Now, and I will quite frankly tell you, I had a grandmother that was born and the German portion of Poland came to this country in 1900. She came with two of her sons. She lived on the north side of Chicago. She never learned how to speak English because she lived in a community that she could go to any store and the people spoke Polish. But that was wrong. Someone should have seen to the people who were coming at that time, the Poles, the Italians, the Lithuanians, the Arabs. There should have been a concentrated effort to get people to speak English. My grandmother didn't. That was wrong, and I accepted being wrong. My grandfather, by the same token, he learned how to speak English. He became very successful in a number of areas because he learned to speak English. He was Americanized. He became a success. If you're going to be a success in this country, you better learn how to speak English and you better adopt the American way of life.
Yeah, the Super Bowl is a foundation of America. I remember
Absolutely.
the first Super Bowl when I was a kid. I think it was 1967, maybe. I don't remember the
And who
team.
played in that, right?
I don't remember. I'll be honest. I'm gonna
Green
be.
Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs, and it was
That's
one
it.
of the
That's who
Green
it
Bay
was.
Packers.
I had to look that up. I mean, we're talking 1967. That's what, 60 years ago? Or
Yeah,
not 60 years ago. I
I
don't know
was.
how we got to
I
60.
think I was 28 at the time.
Yeah, and who performed during their halftime? The University
Uh,
of
I think
Arizona
I think it was.
Symphonic Marching Band.
uh, who was it?
The University of Arizona Symphonic Marching Band,
Oh,
the
okay.
Grambling State University Marching Band, and the L. Hurt Anaheim High School Band. That was the first,
Where,
entertainers for the halftime show
where
in
was that played?
'67. Pardon me?
Where was it played?
I'm just looking this up. It says Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum
Okay.
in
And it,
California.
and it did not sell out. There were some empty seats there.
Yeah,
Yesterday,
the first Super Bowl, nobody knew what that was. A lot of people watched it on TV, but I think somebody told me that the first Super Bowl ad was only $220,000
I
too.
don't doubt it.
Now
That's
it's like it was 8 million last night.
that's
Although
probably what it, that's probably what it costs to get a seat at the Super Bowl now.
right. It's not even an American thing. You got to be wealthy to really kind of enjoy the Super Bowl. But they changed. Ella Fitzgerald performed there once. George Burns performed once during the halftime show with Mickey Rooney. I think that was in 1987 at Super Bowl 21. I'm just looking at a list of all this stuff. It goes through. But the point is, I think it is legitimate to say I didn't like the fact that they spoke in Spanish rather than English. I think that's a legitimate criticism.
I hope
What I
so.
didn't
I
think
feel
was
that way.
legitimate was President Trump, who said, I think his quote, let me get it. It was absolute. This is Bad Bunny, who's a Puerto Rican entertainer. And, you and I know Puerto Rico is an American territory, just like the U.S. Virgin Islands. They have a right to be part of the Super Bowl, although they can't vote for president and they don't have members in Congress, I guess, in Puerto Rico. But Trump said Bad Bunny's performance. It was absolutely terrible, one of the worst ever. Nobody understands a word this guy is saying, and the dancing is disgusting, especially for young children that are watching from throughout the USA and all over the world. Now, I don't think he would have said this is a guy who's a misogynist who hates women and probably abuses women too in all these videos that I see him hanging around with Jeffrey Epstein. I don't trust his criticism. I think he just didn't like him because it was involved in this fight that we have with ICE. That Bad Bunny criticized him and the ICE policies, and I think that's the real reason. But it is legitimate, right, to say, "Hey, I didn't like it because it wasn't in English."
Right. I think it is that. And here, I'll tell you another thing. What you just said about Trump, I thought that the dancing that was done really had very strong sexual overtones. I didn't appreciate that at all. I thought that was a mistake. Maybe I'm a little bit too,
Well, yeah.
prudish, but I really thought the dancing was very sexually suggestive. I wasn't going to say anything about it, but as long as Trump said something about it, I thought for once in the last 3 or 4 months that he and I agreed on something.
Yeah, and that's legitimate. I mean, maybe you say that, but we have seen entertainers. This wasn't the only show where people have had sexual innuendo has
No,
dominated
no.
their performances. Yeah, geez, we've had so many women. Where I can't remember where was the one woman where her breast was exposed,
Yeah,
during one of the shows.
wasn't that
So,
some Jackson?
pardon me.
I think that was a Jackson, wasn't it?
I don't. It might have been. Yeah, I think it was. But the point is that if you want to say there was too much sexual, theme to it. That could have been toned down. There's a way to say that. But I'm
Absolutely.
reading between the lines of what he said. And between the lines of what he said, it was more, in my opinion, it came across more racist. And it was to the point where he kind of fueled that racism because that group, that right-wing group called Turning Point America, which was founded by Charlie Kirk, who was unfortunately assassinated. I didn't agree with Charlie Kirk, but I don't believe anybody should be killed in this country just because they have a view that we don't like. Um, but Turning Point America decided they were so mad that this is the first time that they had an alternate halftime show. Now, about 4 million people watched that online. It was online. And Kid Rock, who was very pro Trump and anti ethnic, I guess, or he doesn't like minorities or whatever. It just
He
seems
is
like,
a minority, isn't he?
let's see, he's a famous white musician. His real name is
Oh,
Robert,
okay.
I'm looking at it, Robert
You're right.
James Ritchie. Yeah, and a songwriter. And I like some of his songs. I like some of his songs, but the point, I guess, is, everything has become racial. Everything has become divisive. We don't look at coming together anymore as being important. And I think that's what's weakening America. I think we as Americans are becoming weak. We're no longer the symbols of what's righteous in this world. When you don't want to be there because the guy's Puerto Rican, that's the reason they didn't want to have the same show. They didn't know he was just going to speak in Spanish. He could have sung some songs. They had Lady Gaga. She spoke in English. I thought she was a very popular entertainer. She performed with Kid Rock. But they singled him out because he's Puerto Rican, because of these ICE issues. So they decided to have their own Turning Point America halftime show, which I think was really kind of un-American to snub the Super Bowl. You don't like the entertainer. There are many times I didn't like the entertainer. I don't like gangster rap. Okay, I don't like that rap music. That's me. That doesn't mean I don't like black people. I don't like gangster rap. There are a couple songs I do like, but the majority of them I don't like. So, but that doesn't make somebody racist for that reason.
Nope, you're right.
Well, and then the bottom line, of course, is I'm a Easter Sunday Bears sports follower. I wish the Bears would have been in there because Caleb Williams would never have missed any of those touchdown passes that the Patriots missed many times. That I felt so sorry for their quarterback for the
Well, he had a
Patriots.
very, very bad day. There's no question about it. But the poor guy was sacked 6 times, and I think he
Yes,
was buried 24 times.
and
That
that
offensive line of the Patriots was absolutely terrible.
And that's what we should be talking about. We should be talking about the game. But here we are, not just you and me, but everybody in the country talking about racism, talking about the hatred, talking about why Puerto Rico is an American territory. Just like the U.S. Virgin Islands, it's an American territory. They're American. And they can't vote on the presidential election unless they come and live in the United States. If they move here and have residency here, they can then vote for president. That's part of the conditions. But I think that's something that Greenland should be thinking about right now. What's going to happen to them? When they're only 80% white, the Danish population in Greenland. What about that 20%? That's going to start a civil war. All right, Bill, how about any final thoughts on the Super Bowl at all? Or
Oh, no, let's move
all right,
on from the Super Bowl.
the stock market. Trump
Oh, the
says
stock
this.
market. Yes.
Trump says the stock market is a reflection of how great the economy is. What do you think? I
I
disagree,
think the
but what do
stock
you think?
market is doing extremely well.
Yes, it is.
22% of this country who has investments in the stock market are doing enormously well.
Huge
No question
investments,
about it.
right? Yeah, the
Now, the
majority.
middle class and the working class are not invested in the stock market, so they're not benefiting from that. What they are doing is paying more and more each and every week for groceries, for homes, for heating. I don't know how long it can go on that way, Ray. Really, uh, we have to do something to give the middle class and the working class in this country a break because too much of their income is going for things that they have to have. They have no ability to save money. And if they don't save any money, they can't invest in this great stock market. We've got to find some way of solving that problem. Now, I'll tell you, when Trump keeps talking about the stock market and people keep talking about thinking about how much they're paying at the grocery store and how much they're paying for electricity, and if they want to buy a house, how much it's going to cost them, they don't think this economy is doing very well at all.
Right. I agree with you. The stock market is not a reflection of our economy. 80% of the wealth of the stock market is held by a very small percentage of population in this country. The wealthiest people benefit from the stock market. Even the pensioners, we were talking earlier about this. Trump always says, well, the pensions are invested in the stock market. They're going to do well. Yeah, the pensions do well in the stock market when the stock market does well, but not to the extent that the 5% of this country that owns 80% of the wealth in the stock market does. They make millions. The pensioners make whatever percent they've been told they're going to get. And in a good stock market, because their pensions are invested in the stock market, their stocks are going to go up just a little bit and they'll make some money. But it also goes down and they get hurt. But the wealthy are the ones that are benefiting from the stock market, not the average person every day. Some people invest in the stock market and I'm sure they're happy that stocks are going up, but that doesn't represent the wealth or the economy of this country. I was at the grocery store the other day. I'm just shocked. One third the amount of money I spend, $250 for groceries, buys one third of what I used to buy just a year ago. When you look at how little we walk out with, and we're being told that everything is good, I wonder how the American people react to his constantly saying, hey, the economy is doing good. To me, I know he's lying. And I'm wondering, though, are the blind so blind, Bill, that they don't care what he says, that they'll believe anything?
Well,
His
I think he's losing more and more support all the time uh, from his base. I really think his base is beginning to turn against him. They're beginning to turn against him primarily because of the economy, but also because of the way he's handled the immigration situation. One of the big reasons that people voted for him was to straighten it out. He straightened out the border. He stopped that.
yes,
But the way I'll sound like a Democrat, the way his stormtroopers have gone out after these illegal aliens in this country have turned people, against him from his own base. That's why I say that I think the Republicans have a chance of losing the United States Senate because of the things that Trump has done and the lack of support he's going to get from his base. And I want to put one thing on a record right
sure.
now. I'm a capitalist. I believe in capitalism.
Yeah,
Okay. I'm not a Democrat either. I used to be a Democrat, but as Ronald Reagan once said, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me.
I
I'm
agree.
American. I want to do what is good for America. I don't believe either party is doing that at the present time. But we criticize Trump so much. Just because I criticize Trump so much, it doesn't mean that I'm a Democrat, that I
Right.
support the Democrat position. Many of their positions to me are frankly anti-American.
I agree with you. And I agree the Democratic Party left me a long time ago. But I also think the Republican Party left also. They're both walked out the door and left people sitting there in desperation. Um, I think it's terrible what's been happening, and I just don't see an answer to it. In fairness, though, the one issue we were going to talk about, you and I really, we talked last week. We said, there's so much negative that we talk about. Bill, I know you looked, and I really looked hard for a good story, a
So
positive
did I.
story that we could talk about. I can't find one. I
No, I
can't
did not
find
find
one
one either.
positive story. Everything is negative.
No, and I'll tell you, there are three candidates running for uh, Durbin's seat in the U.S. Senate. Okay,
Right,
the Democratic nomination.
right,
One of those candidates came out very strongly and said it's time to get rid of ICE. Now, the other two candidates had not said that at all. In fact,
right,
when questioned about it, the other two candidates had said, well, we need to reform ICE. They have to be more moderate in what they're doing. But as soon as that one candidate came out, the other two jumped on the bandwagon.
right,
They do not have the courage to stand up
right.
and follow their own convictions. They will say anything and do anything simply to get elected. And there's another area where I think that, could have been a good story, but unfortunately it turned out not to be. I think we should triple our effort this week, Ray, to find good things to talk about
How,
in this country.
how about we ask our listeners if you can think of a good story, we would love to talk about it. You email
God,
it to
yes.
us at Two Guys on Politics. You just go to twoguysonpolitics.com. Send us a good story. We love because I'm tired of talking about all the hate in this country from the right, from the left, the ugliness, the racism, all that stuff needs to stop. It's just very depressing.
Yes, it is very depressing.
All
And
right,
it
Bill.
wasn't that way a long time ago, Raymond. It was a much better, stronger country a long time ago.
Yes, it was. I agree with you. I'm Ray Hanania.
I'm Bill Lipinski, and this is Two Guys on Politics.
You guys have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you again. Bye bye.